What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here, right here on the Broken Havoc podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from June 27th, 2022. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the review. Of course, the big thing is John Cena's return to WWE television. We got a lot of things to talk about there. A possible match with Austin Theory, maybe at Summerslam for the U.S. title. We got the last chance Money in the Bank qualifying battle royal for the men. We also got an elimination match for the women in the main event as well. Of course, it is the go-home show before Saturday's Money in the Bank pay-per-view in Las Vegas. We got a lot of things to talk about once again right here on the review. But before I get on with all of this craziness, make sure to like and subscribe to the Broken Havoc podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the Broken Havoc podcast is available on audio platforms. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to check out the Broken Havoc podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. All right, let's talk about Monday Night Raw. Of course, the big thing, as I've stated earlier, is John Cena's return to WWE television after his match with Roman Reigns last August at SummerSlam. Of course, WWE was hyping up John Cena's return. I mean, of course they were going to hype him up. I mean, for God's sakes, it's freaking John Cena that we're talking about here. But it's great to see John Cena back on WWE television because, like, as you guys know, John Cena is freaking everywhere now. He's literally on every single Honda commercial that you can think of. He's literally in all these big time Hollywood movies. Like, this guy is, living the life right now. John Cena is this guy right now is a Hollywood megastar. Everybody knows who John Cena is. And literally the first thing that you saw on this show was John Cena, coming in backstage via a standing ovation from the entire roster backstage. Everybody was clapping for John Cena. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? A lot of people were kind of questioning that. I mean, like, I can see, why people were questioning it, because you had people like Miz, who basically was a rival of John Cena, literally clapping for him, when he's walking backstage. But, it was great to see John Cena. That was literally like the first thing that they showed. But aside from John Cena, of course, we had the qualifying matches for Money in the Bank. And really, aside from those, I mean, there was not really something, anything special in my opinion. I mean, like, I felt like this show was just like an show to me. It was fine. Like, John Cena, his segment was great. I absolutely enjoyed that segment, and I'll go through it later on right here on the review. Riddle winning the last chance battle royal. I mean, I think it makes total sense for Riddle to win it. I mean, like, he absolutely deserves to be in that match. Of course, Becky Lynch won the elimination match in the main event, and she will be going on to Money in the Bank as well. Money in the Bank, I mean, they're definitely hyping up Money in the Bank because, I mean, it's Money in the Bank. But overall, I mean, we had Forbidden Door the previous night, and honestly, like, watching this show, I kind of felt like, we got to watch Raw. I completely forgot. We got 3 hours of this stuff. And, to me, watching Raw and, the fact that we're having blood and guts on Dynamite tonight is going to be insane as well. And, like, I'm more hyped. I was more hyped for blood and guts than John Cena's return. That's just my opinion. Nothing against John Cena. I'm a big fan of John Cena, and I feel like, him coming in, coming back for a short period of time, I think it will make the show a little more interesting. But, like, again, I mean, it's WWE we're talking about, and really the most logical thing that's most likely going to happen is John Cena versus Austin Theory, most likely at SummerSlam, considering the fact that SummerSlam is going to be in Nashville inside of a stadium. So, they're definitely, banking high on SummerSlam as well. But, of course, the very first thing you see on the Raw show is John Cena given a standing ovation from the entire roster backstage. And really, throughout the show, John Cena was backstage. He was backstage throughout, like, in many different segments. He had interactions with Ezekiel. He had interactions with Seth Rollins. I mean, literally the first thing that Seth Rollins mentioned to John Cena was how he broke his nose back in 2015 via that knee. If you guys do not recall, I definitely remember that. But, again, really, there was John Cena basically everywhere on this show. You had literally, legends and a lot of wrestlers send in videos about how, John Cena is very influential, because he's very influential. Not only that, of course, it is John Cena's 20th anniversary in the WWE. You had videos from people in AEW, like people like Bryan Danielson, Big Show, aka Paul White, Chris Jericho, who's going to be in the Blood and Guts match tonight, which is crazy to see. And a lot of people were saying, oh, this is the real Forbidden Door. And I'm like, dude, WWE had to go to AEW to get those people, so chill out. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with that regardless anyway. But yeah, man, John Cena was definitely all over this show. But the first thing that happened on Raw, I should say the first match that happened on Raw, was the Last Chance Money in the Bank qualifying Battle Royal. Yes, we got a Battle Royal as part of a quote-unquote Last Chance match, which WWE tends to do this basically as a lazy excuse because they can't do a normal qualifying match, but they went for the Battle Royal instead, and they didn't do a Battle Royal for the women, which was very weird to me. I thought they were going to do something for the women when it came to like a Battle Royal, but no, instead it was an elimination match for the women, so it was very different. But we got one more wrestler to be announced for the men's Money in the Bank match. I believe they're going to be announcing that on SmackDown this coming Friday, but Riddle ended up winning this Battle Royal, which in my opinion made total sense, because a lot of people were saying this on social media, that Bro in the Bank is definitely marketable, and Bro in the Bank definitely, fits. You can literally make a whole t-shirt of Bro in the Bank and, make a bunch of money off of that. But we'll talk about Riddle later on. Let's talk about the entirety of the Battle Royal. So there was a lot of people in this Battle Royal. We had people like the Mysterios, Shinsuke Nakamura, Riddle, a bunch of other guys, AJ Styles, Shanky, Shelton Benjamin, Jinder Mahal, T-Bar, Akira Tozawa. So a bunch of those jobbers were also in the match. Veer instantly gets eliminated by Shelton Benjamin. Ali applies a sleeper, but after that, Veer breaks it out. Ali then takes Veer, which leads to the Mysterios hitting the 619 on Veer, and all three wrestlers proceed to eliminate Veer. So really early on, Veer gets eliminated from the match. So go show you what they think about Veer. Shanky, being Shanky, if you guys have been watching SmackDown for the past couple of weeks, Shanky, I remember last year they'd be booking Shanky as this like unstoppable monster. Not really an unstoppable monster, because really nobody really cared. I wouldn't necessarily say an unstoppable monster, but if you guys don't recall, he was in a tag team, I believe, with Veer, Shanky and Veer, and this is definitely WWE formula. Every time when they book a giant, in a strong fashion and in a really intimidating fashion, and it doesn't work, they tend to go the comedy route, and that's what they basically did with Shanky. They have him dancing with R-Truth. Nothing against Shanky or R-Truth. I mean, R-Truth is pretty entertaining in my opinion. One day, hopefully in an alternate universe, we get an interaction between Danhausen and R-Truth. But, he was dancing with R-Truth, but then Jinder, attacks R-Truth, which leads to Shanky eliminating R-Truth. But what happens is Jinder Mahal is behind trying to eliminate Shanky, but Jinder ends up being eliminated on his own. AJ Styles is also in the match, as I've stated earlier, but then he ends up eliminating Jinder Mahal as well. T-Bar takes Reggie, so both jobbers, of course, he throws them to the outside on Jinder and Shanky. Once we're back from commercial break, Dominic Mysterio almost eliminates Riddle, but he comes back. Ciampa comes back with somewhat of a stunner on Riddle. Dominic fights off Dolph Ziggler. At this point, AJ Styles is on the apron, but he picks up Ciampa. AJ then pushes Ciampa onto the post, but then Miz gets taken to the middle rope. Rey Mysterio then hits the 619. So the weird thing about Miz and AJ Styles is that they both had a freaking singles match later on in the night, which is very questionable to me. I mean, I know, in the Royal Rumble, anybody can go even if you had a match, but still, this is on television, so why the heck would you book Miz and AJ Styles in this match if they're going to have a singles match together later on in the night? Now, granted, for the Royal Rumble, I totally understand, but this is just a normal battle royal to determine, somewhat to qualify, but that is just me. Just nitpicking right there. But Miz hits the DDT. He almost eliminates Rey Mysterio, but then Dominic makes the save. Dominic then tries to eliminate Dolph Ziggler, but then Dolph holds on, and Dominic proceeds to get eliminated. Dolph then picks up Rey, but then Dolph tries to eliminate Rey, but then both at this point are on the apron, but then Miz proceeds to enter the fray. Miz and Rey are on the apron, but then Dolph and Miz eliminate Rey Mysterio. At this point, Riddle almost gets eliminated by the Miz, but that does not happen. Shinsuke Nakamura is on the apron, but then Ricochet almost eliminates Dominik Dijakovic, a.k.a. T-Bar. Then he hits a dropkick, but gets caught. Ricochet then jumps. Yeah, Ricochet is in this match. He tries to jump onto the ladder onto the outside. So what happens was T-Bar tried to eliminate Ricochet, but then Ricochet pulled a Kofi Kingston and he jumped onto the ladder onto the outside. He jumps back. I believe it was on the apron. He jumps back on T-Bar, but then proceeds to fight him off. He hits a Hurricane Rana and eliminates Ricochet. Then after that, once we're back from break, Miz goes for the sledge on Riddle. Miz lands on his left knee, but then Dolph goes for the back elbow. Then after that, Shinsuke goes for the kick, eliminating Dolph Ziggler. Shinsuke and Riddle fight it out, but then he goes for the spinning heel kick. The spinning heel kick. Shinsuke goes for it, I believe. God damn, I literally missed my freaking notes. Oh my god. Shinsuke then gets taken to the apron, but then we get an overhead kick by Riddle, eliminating Shinsuke Nakamura. Ricochet comes in, but then he picks up Riddle. Then Riddle counters for a catapult, but then Ricochet at this point is on the middle rope. He drops onto a kick by AJ Styles, but then he proceeds to get eliminated by Styles. After that, AJ Styles and Riddle are the final two guys in the match. Both Riddle and AJ fight it out. We get a right hand by AJ, but then AJ gets taken to the apron. Then at this point, Styles is on the apron, but then Miz comes in and eliminates AJ. But then Miz tries to eliminate Riddle, but then Riddle is on the apron hitting a kick. Then Miz almost sets up the skull-crushing finale, and then Riddle takes Miz to the middle rope for the DDT after that. Miz then counters the RKO for the skull-crushing finale, but then Miz runs into Riddle getting caught with the triangle submission. At this point, Miz is on the apron, but then both are still on the apron. Miz runs into an RKO on the apron, which leads to Miz getting eliminated. Riddle wins the last chance Money in the Bank Battle Royal, and we will be a part of the ladder match on Sunday. So that's a great addition to the Money in the Bank, in my opinion. I think Riddle being a part of the match definitely makes the match more interesting, because I have stated in previous Raw reviews that definitely Seth Rollins is 100% the guy to win Money in the Bank. You know, it makes total sense, because if Seth Rollins wins the Money in the Bank, which that will basically lead to SummerSlam, which we all know Seth Rollins is most likely going to cash in on either Roman or Brock. But having Riddle involved in the match, now we got people like Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Omos, Sami Zayn, and Riddle, and we got one other entrant, and that's going to be announced on SmackDown this coming Friday. So again, Riddle can either Riddle or Rollins are definitely the two favorites coming into this match, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Riddle wins, because then they can market Riddle as Bro in the Bank. Honestly, that may, to me, that's definitely marketable in my opinion, and I would definitely be excited for them to if Riddle wins, to basically him to call instead of Mr. Money in the Bank, Bro in the Bank. But that is just me. We got the Street Profits backstage. So what happens is they talk about John Cena, and they turn the camera and says that basically nobody is there, so it's the running joke of you can't see me. But then they turn the other side, and John Cena is actually here, and then they actually want advice, which is like a common occurrence throughout the entirety of the show, which, John Cena in many of these backstage segments, these wrestlers like Ezekiel, I need some advice. Like, it's a constant thing, I get it, but this is why I don't like modern WWE TV, especially when it involves legends like John Cena. Every time when they a legend comes back, for example, let's take John Cena for example, right? Or anybody else, and then they're teaming up with the new guy. The new guy constantly puts them over, saying, "Oh my God, he's such a legend." Blah blah blah. I get it already. Every time when the younger guy puts over the veteran, I'm fine with that, but at least make it into a situation in which it sounds believable. Because when you hear it on television, it sounds super cringe to me. Now, granted, the Street Profits did this whole thing really well, but Ezekiel did it. It was very weird to me, and it's been happening for the past couple of years. Every time when a legend comes back, it's just weird to me. But that is just me. The way that they put over the legend and say, "Oh, this man's a legend. I can't wait to team up." It sounds too cringe to me. That is just my opinion. But John Cena with the Street Profits, that was really good. Riddle goes, he has a backstage interview and says that he talks about how, he loves Randy and all that stuff, and he's been having a run of bad luck because of the fact that he's been losing a lot of matches. And then, Cena said, came up to him and says that, John Cena told him to never give up. And now he's going to Money in the Bank, and now he's freaking excited. So, yeah, great for Riddle. Which, do I think he's going to be winning the Money in the Bank? I don't think so, but he's definitely a favorite, as I've stated earlier. We got Jey Uso versus Montez Ford. Look, these guys can put a great match any day of the week, right? They put on a good match, right, on this show. But, bro, how many freaking times do we have to see, any type of match, a tag team match or a singles match involving the Usos and the Street Profits? I mean, this is the problem with WWE TV. I constantly see this shit on a constant basis every week, and I even tweeted it out. I should post it. I should retweet it once again. Week 1 we got Jey Uso versus Jey Uso versus Montez Ford. The next week we got Jey Uso versus Angelo Dawkins, and then the next week we got Jey Uso versus. It's on a constant basis, man. Like that. This is why I tend to like kick myself whenever I watch, Raw every week, considering the fact that, it's not, it's the rematches, but at the same time, I mean, like, we've probably seen these matches already. Like, how many times have we seen any type of match, a singles match or a tag team match involving the Street Profits and the Usos? It's constant repetitiveness, in my opinion. And heck, we got Montez, we got the Street Profits versus Jey Uso, which is going to be a great match. Don't get me wrong, but I've already seen that great match already. It's constant repetitiveness on a constant basis that I do not like at all. But nonetheless, these people did put on a good match. Both lock up. Ford goes for the shoulder tackle. We get an arm drag by Ford. He works on the shoulder of Jey Uso, but then Ford goes for the arm drag. We get a drop kick by Ford, but then Jey Uso goes to the outside. At this point, Ford is on the apron, but then he gets caught trying to do a kick, but then gets dropped on the apron. Then Ford gets sent to the steel steps. Once we're back from commercial break, Jey Uso is in control. He sends Ford to the corner, but then Ford fires back with the clothesline of his own. Ford then goes for the clothesline, but then Ford lands on his feet from a backdrop. Then he proceeds to hit the Insigiri, but then Jey goes for the super kick, but then Ford goes in for the jumping lariat after that, and then he goes for the standing moonsault, but then we get a cover by Ford and a near fall. Jey then lands on his feet from a backdrop attempt, and then Jey goes for the pump-up cutter, but then we get a cover and a near fall. Jey then runs into a super kick by Ford, but then he proceeds to take him down. We get a cover into near fall again, but then Ford goes to the top, but then Jimmy makes the distraction. Dawkins at this point attacks Jimmy, and then Ford goes for the suicide dive on Jey. Ford later on goes to the top, and he hits a beautiful frog splash. I mean, I came on this show so many different times, constantly putting over Montez Ford. Like, this guy is going to be a WWE champion. I know I keep repeating myself with that, but dude, Montez Ford, just the way, the guy is very charismatic. I like the way he speaks. And not only that, this guy, he brings a sense of uniqueness, if that's a word, to his in-ring ability. And that's what I really enjoy about Montez Ford, man. The way he pulled off that frog splash, man, Montez Ford is amazing. And we get a cover, and Ford wins the match. Great. Do I see the Street Profits possibly winning at Money in the Bank? Most likely not. Again, how many times do we have to see the Street Profits and the Usos wrestle in matches every frickin' week? It's getting boring to me now. The Mysterios are backstage, and then they meet up, or I shouldn't say meet up. They run in backstage to Judgment Day. Yeah, remember them? Judgment Day, they're still here on Raw. They haven't been on television for the past couple of weeks. So, I mean, they have, but, really, they haven't been an integral part of Judgment Day. It goes to show you that the plans that WWE actually has for the Judgment Day. But, Balor, Rhea, and... Actually, I think it was only Balor and Damian Priest that were there. They talk about how basically Ray is holding Dominic back, and, talks about all the things that Ray is not teaching Dominic. And then Ray gets pissed, and what happens is Rey Mysterio basically says, I'll see you next week. So most likely we will see a match between either the Judgment Day and Rey Mysterio. Who knows what could happen, but definitely it all points to, I believe they booked the Mysterios versus Balor and Priest next week. So we're going to have to see what happens there, but hey, maybe you never know. Could Dominic be a future member of Judgment Day? I doubt it, but you never know. All right. We got a really awesome video package of John Cena basically highlighting his entire career, Great video package. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. We get an in-ring interview with The Miz. Says that, you know, the interviewer talks about Logan Paul, and basically, you know, Miz talks about how they're going to team together once again. And Logan Paul, I mean, like, look, I even stated on this show that Logan Paul is pretty good in the ring. But again, I mean, like, Logan Paul for SummerSlam, I mean, like, I've seen it at WrestleMania. I liked it, but I don't want to see it again, okay? But, you know, Miz talked about how they were going to team up once again, but what happened was basically the interviewer kind of questioned The Miz, saying, did you even remember what you did to Logan Paul after the match at WrestleMania? Of course, if you guys don't remember, after the match that both Logan Paul and The Miz had against the Mysterios at Mania Night 1, The Miz gave a skull-crushing finale to Logan Paul, and, you know, Miz talks about how that was a lesson learned, but most likely, let's be honest, it's not going to be a tag team match. It's going to be a freaking singles match between Logan Paul and The Miz. So that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. So then after that, AJ Styles comes out. And before AJ Styles even came out, he gets pissed about the balls joke, of course. Like, the WWE is constantly running with that, like the balls joke. And Miz talks about how he has big balls and shit. Like, it's so Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard, let's be honest. All right. So then that leads us to AJ Styles versus The Miz. Not a bad match at all, but let's talk about the match. So AJ goes for the drop kick. Then he proceeds to go for the backbreaker, but then Miz goes for the running kick on AJ. He takes AJ to the middle rope, and then he goes for a kick to the back onto the neck of AJ. Then after that, Miz goes for a couple of kicks. Then after that, AJ fights back, but then Miz sends AJ into the corner. He gets a clothesline into the corner, and then Miz goes to the top for the double sledge. We get a cover engineer full, and then he applies a side headlock on AJ Styles. Then AJ fights back with the chop, but then AJ sends him into the outside. Then after that, AJ goes over the top rope, and then he proceeds to land on his feet. Then he lands on his feet from a moonsault attempt, but then Miz sends him to the barricade. Once we're back from commercial break, Miz applies the side headlock on AJ Styles. AJ then fights back, but then Miz goes for the DDT. We get a cover and a near fall. Then Miz goes for the one and only yes kicks. Then after that, we get AJ catches the kick of Miz and hits a German suplex. AJ then goes for the clothesline, followed by a sliding forearm. Then AJ goes for the facebuster, and then we get a cover and an immediate kick out. Then after that, AJ goes for the sunset flip and proceeds to hit a neck breaker on Miz. We get a cover and a near fall, but then Miz goes after the throat of AJ. AJ then gets taken to the apron, but then he proceeds to hit a forearm on the Miz. Miz then ducks the phenomenal forearm, but then AJ goes to the top. Miz then proceeds to drop AJ on his knees, and then we get a cover by Miz and another near fall. Miz then takes AJ up for the superplex, but then Miz gets taken down when AJ escapes. AJ then picks up Miz, but then Miz escapes and hits a couple of kicks. Then Miz goes for the flying knee. We get a cover and a near fall. AJ then goes for the roll-up, and we get another near fall once again. We get a kick by Miz, but then AJ goes for the frickin' Pele kick. And then after that, AJ goes for the brainbuster on the Miz. AJ then goes to the apron, but then Miz escapes. And Miz leaves, and AJ wins via countout. So we get a countout finish. I definitely do expect another rematch happening next week on Raw. Watch, next week we're going to be getting The Miz versus AJ Styles, and we're going to be getting that for the next month. Watch. I guarantee you we're going to be getting a rematch. Just watch. All right. John Cena is backstage with Elias's younger brother, Ezekiel. Ezekiel talks about Elias and says that he wants to make sure that the whole world can seek with Zeke. But then all of a sudden, Austin Theory shows up behind John Cena, and he goes and gloats in front of John Cena, talking about how he got the biggest guns and he's the youngest U.S. champion and he's Mr. McMahon's protege. And then Theory takes a selfie, and then so once Theory goes for the selfie, he turns around and John Cena leaves. So this is setting up the stage, of course, for a future match that is definitely going to be happening at SummerSlam. It's going to be Austin Theory versus John Cena, which I have no problem with at all. I think, having John Cena versus Austin Theory wrestle at SummerSlam for the U.S. title, I think it gives a sense of importance to the United States Championship, considering the fact that John Cena has history with the United States title. Of course, back in 2004, he won the title from Big Show, and he had a long run with the U.S. title. Also, back in 2015, when he beat Rusev at WrestleMania, and he had that amazing United States Open Challenge on Raw. Basically made Raw watchable every week just for that. But, a lot of people say, maybe John Cena can win the U.S. title. I do not think that's going to be the case. I honestly believe that it's going to be a scenario in which Austin Theory gets the win. That's what I say. This whole match with John Cena is built for Austin Theory to get over. John Cena is 100% going to be putting over Austin Theory. And you know what? That's good. That's totally fine with me. I have no problem with that. All right. Bianca Belair, she has an interview in the ring. Talks about how she wishes Carmella was out here because, because everything she will say to her face. And talks about how Carmella had to cheap shot her, and talks about how no one respects her. And she stepped in the ring with Carmella, and she is so focused and insecure, and says that she better bring it at Money in the Bank. Bianca talks about how she craves competition and calls out Carmella so she can step up to her face-to-face. Carmella then comes out and says Bianca is so wrong. She is not insecure at all. She is smart, and she has beauty, and she also has the brain. And she is basically the total package, and she will not apologize for that. She speaks for herself and basically runs down all the accolades that she has. I didn't realize that Carmella was a 2-time Money in the Bank winner. I thought she won that once. I didn't know that she won that 2 times, but she was a former Money in the Bank winner, SmackDown Women's Champion, former Tag Team Champion, all that stuff. And talks about how if she is not getting the respect, then she will take her title at Money in the Bank, and then she proceeds to leave. But when she tries to leave, she tries to go for the cheap shot, but then Bianca takes her out, leaving Carmella outside the ring. Of course, this is building up for their match this Saturday at Money in the Bank, which I think it's pretty obvious that Bianca Belair is going to retain the SmackDown Women's Champion, not the SmackDown, the Raw Women's Championship. See, this is why WWE is getting the brand split, man. I get so confused. Bianca Belair is 100% going to be retaining at Money in the Bank. I do not see Carmella. Do I think Carmella and Bianca Belair would possibly have a good match? Yeah, I think they will. I genuinely believe that. I may be wrong, but we'll have to wait and see. I think the match is probably going to be really good, and of course, this is to build up for their match at Money in the Bank. I mean, granted, a lot of people really do not care about it, but you know what? Let's give it a shot. We got Alexa Bliss versus Liv Morgan, of course. So I believe this was a Money in the Bank qualifying match. Let me see. No, I don't think it was. But we got Alexa Bliss versus Liv Morgan. It was a pretty short match, but both talk about how they're not gonna be friends on Saturday, and they're gonna be winning the Money in the Bank. But the match starts. Both lock up. Liv goes for the side headlock. We get a side headlock takeover by Alexa Bliss. Liv goes for the waistlock. We get a bunch of waistlock switches. We get a hip attack into the corner by Liv. Bliss then goes for the double knees, but then she proceeds to land on her feet from a standing moonsault attempt. Then we get a shotgun dropkick by Bliss, but then we get a cover and a near fall. Then Liv Morgan, I should say, goes for this side headlock, followed by an enziguri, but then Bliss counters Liv with the backbreaker, and then we got a roll up by Liv Morgan, and basically what happens is she wins the match. So, yeah, man, they're both, of course, going to be a part of the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. So the listing for the women's Money in the Bank match after this show is Lacey Evans versus Alexa Bliss versus Liv Morgan versus Raquel Rodriguez versus Asuka versus Shotzi versus Becky Lynch. Of course, Becky Lynch later on this show that I'm actually giving you guys the review of won the women's elimination match, so she will now be a part of the match as well. A lot of people were definitely speculating if Bayley was going to be a part of the match. But I doubt that is going to be the case. Now, granted, Bayley on social media did tweet or post on Instagram that she was definitely going to be a part of the match. Not posting that she was basically announcing it, but she basically gave you guys a little teaser, like showing a photo with her hugging the Money in the Bank briefcase. Who knows? Maybe they can bring in an extra entrant in the match. Who knows? It's WWE we're talking about. They tend to do this type of stuff all the time. But again, it's a situation in which we're going to have to wait and see on the pay-per-view on Saturday. All right. We got John Cena's official return. Before John Cena came out, the Vince McMahon, yes, Vince fucking McMahon came out. Even if all these allegations are coming out about him, he don't give a damn. Vince McMahon's coming out. Let's be honest, Vince McMahon, all this shit's coming out about him, paying hush money, $3 million of hush money to this former employee, all that stuff. All this stuff comes out, and Vince McMahon don't give a damn because he has a smile on his face. He don't give a single shit. He comes out and literally acts like nothing is wrong. He literally acts like nothing is wrong at all. But that's another story for another time. I mean, let's be honest. The first time Vince McMahon appeared on television after these, after this investigation started, of course, he appeared on SmackDown. I think it was 2 weeks ago where he appeared on SmackDown. Basically what happened was he came out on SmackDown 2 weeks ago, opening the show, welcomed all of us to SmackDown, and said nothing, and then left. And then the same thing happened last week on Raw, and this is happening again, but in this case, he introduces John Cena. Bro, you got these allegations and you just come out on television like that. Granted, let's be honest, Vince McMahon, he doesn't care at all. You can tell by the look in his face, he doesn't care. I don't know why you want to come out, but basically, it got a lot of people pissed off. But let's be honest, when he came out last week, did you honestly expect anything? No. Let's be honest. Of course, Vince McMahon was not going to say anything, but it's very questionable why Vince McMahon, even after all these allegations are coming out, Vince McMahon is still coming out. I do not know why. It's so stupid to me, but whatever. It's Vince McMahon. You don't give a damn. Let's be honest. Vince McMahon don't give a shit about us. The wrestlers then come out on the stage, and then Vince introduces John Cena. And then John Cena comes out, and, he got a huge standing ovation, man. You saw throughout the entirety of the crowd that there's a bunch of John Cena posters. Really, this whole Raw show was built around the return of John Cena. That's what it basically was. But John Cena comes out, says today is his WWE birthday. It says as he looks around the people, you can feel the energy and you can hear the noise. He couldn't thought of a better place to have his birthday, and points out at the 20 years of, he basically points out somebody of signs, and, he talks about 20 years of the shorts. He says that he's never been one on celebrating milestones because he loves to look forward to what's next. But tonight is very different because tonight has nothing to do with anything that he has done. Tonight has everything to do with the people. This is his 20th anniversary, and this 20th anniversary is important to him because we have allowed him, we as us, the fans, allowed him to do it for 2 decades. Every time he stands in this ring is because he allows it. We allow it, I should say. And over the years, he created an environment to be his true self. And, today, they have been brave. We have been brave, I should say, to say that whether he sucks or when he doesn't sucks. And he always wanted to say thank you because he guesses that he has been waiting for the right moment. And then we get a bunch of thank you Cena chants. His heart is beating out of his chest, and he is filled with excitement. He thanks the fans for making him who he is, and he always says to anyone WWE, prepared him for everything, and he is not talking about his movies. He means because of the people and their reaction and investments in him, they have made him a better human being and a better professional and a better husband and a better person, and says that they taught him humility and perseverance. And this isn't about his last name and people. It's about people coming together, and says that he is 45 years old, and says that, he needs to say this now. It ain't just going to be one time, but he doesn't know when it's gonna be. And anything he does outside of this isn't about him. It's about us coming together. It's all about us, the people. And he is asking the people if something sucks, say something. And it's never about him. It's about us, because if we want some, come get some. And if we're watching at home or we're watching in Laredo, Texas, we never give up, and we're just getting started. And if you want some, come get some. So that was basically the gist of John Cena's promo that he cut this past Monday. Overall thoughts on this promo. This was a really good promo that John Cena cut. Every time when John Cena gets on the mic, you definitely feel something, because John Cena is one of the best talkers and one of the best entertainers in the history of this business. You know, you got a lot of these neckbeards, talking shit on John Cena. Meanwhile, John Cena is a whole draw. Let's be 100% real. John Cena is a whole draw, 100%. And he's basically the last true face of the WWE. Really, people can talk about how Roman Reigns right now is the face of the company, but, after Rock and Austin, really the closest that he went to being those two and pretty much exceeded those two was definitely John Cena. John Cena 100% is the guy, and he still embodies everything about WWE. Whenever you think WWE, you think John Cena. That's just the truth. But overall thoughts on this segment. This was a fantastic segment overall. I absolutely loved everything that he stated right here. And we got no follow-up from after that Austin Theory segment, but probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably are going to have to wait and see what transpires, because, of course, we got Money in the Bank, and, of course, we need to finish Money in the Bank. And after Money in the Bank, we got SummerSlam, which will take place in the end of July, which is definitely really weird to me, because SummerSlam usually happens between mid to late August every freaking year. Now it's happening at the end of July, which is very weird to me, but it is what it is. But after Money in the Bank, I definitely expect to see more John Cena and more Austin Theory build, because that is the rumored match and the most likely match to happen at SummerSlam. We got Bobby Lashley versus Alpha Academy in a handicap match, a match that I did not care absolutely no. I gave 0 2 shits about. Austin Theory is the special enforcer. Lashley and Otis start. We get a side headlock by Lashley. Otis then no-sells a couple of shots by Lashley. He proceeds to trip Otis, but then Otis gets taken down into the corner. Lashley then chases Theory, but then runs into a cannonball by Gable, followed by a splash on Otis onto the outside. Once we're back from break, Lashley fights off, Theory, I believe it was. Lashley runs into a boot by Otis into the corner, but then Otis is in control. Theory then goes for a selfie, and his selfie is on the Titantron. Lashley then fights off Otis, but then Gable enters the fray. Lashley then proceeds to fight out both members of Alpha Academy. Otis gets taken to the outside. Then he takes down Lashley, that being Chad Gable. We get a cover into near fall. Gable goes to the top, but then Lashley comes in. Otis makes the blind tag. Otis then tags... I don't even remember what the hell I wrote there, but he powerbombs Lashley. Gable then goes for the moonsault, and we get a cover into near fall. Otis then later goes to the top, but then Lashley gets Otis up and then drops Otis. So that was crazy. And then Gable goes to the top, and he proceeds to catch Gable for the hurt lock, but then Gable taps out. Lashley wins the match, but then Theory attacks Lashley. All three heels gang up on Lashley after that. Lashley fights back, and he takes Otis face down to the mat, and then he proceeds to spear Chad Gable, but then Theory is about to... Lashley, I should say, is about to spear Theory, but then Theory retreats. So this is definitely leading to a match for the U.S. title between both Theory and Lashley at Money in the Bank. One other thing that was definitely interesting about this show is we got an exclusive interview with Cody Rhodes. Of course, Cody Rhodes is currently injured, and he's by far the best thing besides Roman Reigns on WWE television. Talks about how rehab is rehab, and it's a bunch of highs and lows. He would have loved to be a part of the Money in the Bank ladder match, but due to the sledgehammer, he is out 9 months. He runs down everybody that's going to be in the men's Money in the Bank match. He proceeds to talk about Seth Rollins, and he asks what happens if history repeats itself. If he cashed in and won the title, and, he's not rooting for anyone, but if Seth won, he would be the first person to congratulate him. And then Cody Rhodes leaves. So where does this possibly lead to? I mean, Cody Rhodes is going to be out, but since it's a torn pec, history has shown that wrestlers tend to come back very, very early even when they have a torn pec injury, the first thing that comes to mind was John Cena in 2008. He injured his torn pec around late 2007 and returned at the Royal Rumble. So it was like 4 months that he was out, 4 or 3 months that he was out, but then he came back at the Royal Rumble. So I definitely do expect Cody Rhodes to come back. When they say 9 months, it's most likely going to be 3 or 4 months that they're going to come back. Let's be honest. John Cena is backstage, and Seth Rollins comes in, laughing, singing his theme song, which was hilarious. He asks him if he remembered the last time they were in the ring together, and he broke his nose. He talked about how they had a lot of ups and downs, and they have a lot of things in common. They are both megastars, fashion icons, and they are winners of the Money in the Bank contract. When he cashed in, he talks about how John Cena, of course, John Cena was the Money in the Bank winner. But if you guys don't recall, John Cena did win the Money in the Bank, but he cashed it in, he cashed it in the babyface way. I think it was against CM Punk, but then he lost, which is hilarious. But he failed and says that, at Money in the Bank, history is going to repeat itself. Omos then shows up and says MVP, he basically states that he thinks that Omos is going to be winning the match. And then John Cena looks at Omos and then he tells Seth Rollins, good luck. So that was pretty funny to see. And that was the last we saw of John Cena on television. So in our main event, we got the elimination match between Doudrop, Nikki ASH, Shayna Baszler, and Becky Lynch. Overall thoughts on this match, and Tamina. Tamina was also a part of this match as well. And Xia Li as well. She was also a part of this match. I thought it was going to be a battle royal just like the men in the opening of the show, but that was not going to be the case. So it was an elimination match. Overall thoughts on the match. It was fine for what it was. I didn't really care much about it, but Becky Lynch won the match. I mean, great. I mean, I hope Becky Lynch does not win it because really I'm not really that big of a fan of Becky Lynch right now, but it is what it is. But the match starts. Doudrop and Nikki ASH double slam Shayna. We get a cover into near fall. Doudrop and Tamina face off, but then Nikki comes in. Both Nikki and Doudrop send Tamina into the corner. Tamina then goes for the right. Doudrop goes for the headbutt, but then Tamina fights back. Tamina goes to the apron, but then Doudrop hits a right, sending Tamina to the outside. Becky then goes for a kick, and then she goes to the top. She proceeds to hit a senton. After that, we get a cover into near fall. We get a roll-up by Xia Li, and we get a near fall. Lee fights off Becky Lynch. We get a roll-up by Nikki, and we get a kick out. Becky then hits the manhandle slam on Xia Li, and we get a cover, and Xia Li gets eliminated. She was the first one to get eliminated very early on in the match. So, I mean, let's be honest, WWE does not view really highly on Xia Li. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, she was barely on TV, and they had her turn heel in a small backstage segment once they came back from commercial break. That's how really, that's how, let's be honest, that's how they, usually use most of their talent for the most part. Nikki is in control over Becky Lynch, but then Shayna comes in. She tries to stomp Becky, but then Becky escapes. Becky and Shayna goes for the waistlock on Doudrop, but then Shayna applies a sleeper, but gets taken down by Doudrop. She proceeds to hit a cannonball on Shayna Baszler, but then Tamina enters the fray. Nikki then goes to the top, but then misses Becky and hits a leg drop off the top. We get a roll-up by Becky, transitioned into the disarmer, but then Nikki taps out and gets eliminated. Once we're back from commercial break, Shayna then applies a sleeper hold on Becky Lynch. Both are on the outside, and then Becky goes for it looked like, I believe it was a fall-away slam on Shayna onto the barricade. Doudrop then takes Shayna and Becky to the barricade, but then Shayna goes for a kick on Doudrop. Then we get another cover and a near fall. Shayna and Becky then try to suplex Tamina, but then Doudrop comes in and causes a Tower of Doom drop, taking out everybody. Then later on, Shayna applies a sleeper hold, but then Tamina goes for the kick. Shayna then applies the footlock, but then Doudrop hits a crossbody. We get a cover, and Shayna Baszler gets eliminated. It was pretty obvious that she was not going to be winning this match at all. Becky then comes in, but then Tamina picks up Becky for the Samoan drop. Tamina then goes to the top, but then misses a splash, but then Doudrop slams Becky. Then she goes for the senton on Becky onto the outside, but then Doudrop works on Tamina, but then she goes to the middle rope. Then she proceeds to hit the elbow drop. We get a cover, and Tamina is eliminated. Becky is back in the ring. The last two are Doudrop and Becky Lynch. She goes to the middle rope, but then misses the slam. Becky then tries to go for the manhandle slam, but instead she goes to the top. She proceeds to hit the manhandle slam on Doudrop off from the middle rope, and we get a cover, and Becky Lynch wins the match, and she will now be a part of the Women's Money in the Bank match this Saturday at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view in Las Vegas. So now their current entrants are Lacey Evans versus Alexa Bliss versus Liv Morgan versus Raquel Rodriguez versus Asuka versus Shotzi versus Becky Lynch. So the field for the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match is absolutely stacked right now. It's full, and I do not see Bayley returning anytime soon to the Money in the Bank. But hey, you never know. Anything can happen because Bayley has been out for a long period of time, and I feel like right now it's time for her to return. But again, we're gonna have to wait and see in the near future. But yeah, that was my Raw review from June 27th, 2022. Overall thoughts on this show. I thought it was a fine show. Of course, really the main thing about this show was John Cena's return and a possible program with Austin Theory, which is really the most likely program that is going to be happening leading up to SummerSlam. That's basically what's going to be happening. But overall, we had the qualifying matches and also the small, interview with Cody Rhodes. But really, aside from all of those things, everything else on the show is basically, rendered useless in my opinion. I really had no caring about really what went down on the show. Even with John Cena, I was excited for John Cena's return, but at the same time, I mean, he's not going to be here for a long period of time. And not only that, it's WWE TV we're talking about. I mean, we just came off an amazing pay-per-view at Forbidden Door. Plus, we got Blood and Guts tonight. So, I mean, honestly, I'm not really as interested. But we do got Money in the Bank happening this Saturday. So, definitely be on the lookout for my Money in the Bank predictions. But as always, please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Broken Havoc podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notification. But as always, it is Broken Havoc, signing out.